questions for you today. A lot of people writing in.
How much does attraction matter when choosing somebody, especially when you make snap judgments very quickly when you're just scrolling through matches, for example, online?
It's a great thing to have chemistry with somebody, but it's only one of 29 things. Is it the most important of the 29 things? For some people, it seems to be. Look over your Hollywood marriages. How many people in Hollywood have been married once? Most of them have been married multiple times. I did a show for Geraldo. We looked at multiple marriages, and one man had been married 45 times. Every time he saw a pretty face, he was attracted to that person. He didn't know what was inside that person. You've got to know what's inside that person, how they think, what kind of ambition they have, what kind of sense of humor they have, what kind of kindness they have. So many other things if you're going to really have a chance for a long marriage.
Well, welcome to another episode of Christian Answers. My name is Pastor Jeff Short, and I want to talk a little bit further about what we talked about last week was the Eharmony and Christian Mingles situation, where we have a California court telling Eharmony and Christian Mingle that they cannot have an exclusively Christian website where Christian women meet Christian men and Christian men meet Christian women. The court in California said that that's unconstitutional, that the Christian Mingle website most recently must have matching system for homosexuals so that men can meet men and women can meet women. And I talked about how outrageous that is, how it is a direct attack against Christian morality, Christian values. You're on a Christian site, you would think that there would be Christian morality, Christian values governing the way there is interaction between men and women. And now the court, the California court, is imposing its secular vision on the United States, and it's imposing it on Christians. This is an attack upon Christian liberty. There's no question about it. And I went into that, and I hope that you had a chance to see that presentation. But today I want to talk a little bit more about the websites themselves. Apart from this most recent controversy, I just wanted to talk about the website itself, the Christian website. Eharmony and Christian Mingles. I myself have had experience on these sites and other sites. There are other sites out there. For example, there is Match.com, and based on the profile of the person you're looking at, if you're a man looking at the woman's profile, you can see if she is a Christian or not. You can sort of tell. There's information on that site that tells you about the person's faith. There are questions, I think they even ask about religion and a church attendance and whatnot. So you kind of get an idea about what this other person believes about the Lord. But of course then you have to talk to them, and you have to actually get to know them, meet them, and find out more about them to really know. As with everything else, you have to really get to know them on a one-to-one conversational level. But my interest today is to talk about the whole concept of what these websites are doing. And I realize that this is a place where Christians can meet other Christians, and it is a place where people can find someone to date and also eventually to get married to, because I have heard of and know people that have found a marriage partner. Okay, I'm back outside here, and I wanted to just continue the conversation outside because it was such a nice day. And so I want to pick up where I left off inside, and that is to say that I wanted to look at the whole concept of what Christian Mingle and Eharmony, Match.com, and some of the other websites are doing. And I want to question some of the assumptions of these websites. Now, this is totally apart from the controversy. I am totally in favor of Eharmony and Christian Mingles doing what they're doing, and I believe that they need to be free from outside government interference. They need to be free to reinforce the Christian values that Christians hold dearly who visit that site and come there to want to meet other Christians for a dating situation or eventual marriage. But what I want to do is question some of the assumptions that all of these sites make. For example, Eharmony, about 10 years ago, as I said before, I have dabbled in Eharmony and met some really neat women on Eharmony and have been on some dates with some really neat women. But the whole idea of Eharmony is that you try to list things about yourself, and then the computers and the algorithms match you together with someone that you would most likely be compatible with. And that works for the most part. But if you go to things like Christian Mingle, there are actual questions on there that tend to almost treat the subject of dating as if you're trying to do a shop for a home, or shop for a car, or shop for a job, or any number of things, because what they it boils down to, at least more on Christian Mingle than less on Eharmony, but to some extent on Eharmony, and definitely a lot on Match.com and sites like that, is that they list your preferences, what you like, what is your favorite, what do you like to do in your free time, and what do you like to do this. And if you look at the questions that they ask you, these are mostly free time activities. In other words, this is a match for another person who actually likes the same kind of hobbies you do, that seems to like the same kind of free time activities you do. And here's my question to that. If you're really looking to marry someone and you have all this great compatibility as far as what you like to do with your free time, you like to go to these kind of movies, and you like music and all these other things, what that's matching you to is a person who really likes to do free time recreational activities along the same mold as you do. And so you're going to get along great during the free time activities. But my question is that what marriage is about? And the answer, of course, is no. The marriage is not about what is your favorite kind of music, and what movies do you like, and what are your favorite sports, and all these other things. Yes, you want to find someone that can put up with, or at least tolerate, or even participate in the kind of movies and the sporting activities as you like. But those are geared to free time activities. But the marriage commitment is not mostly about free time activities. At least that's not what the Bible outlines as a marriage relationship is. I mean, maybe in the newer 21st century secular world, where you have the man and the woman both pursuing their individual careers, and then when you get home, you would like to have someone who could then have a compatible free time activity agenda. And so then, after you're done with your recreational activities of sports, and you go to this concert and here and there, then what about the actual marriage itself, where you actually have to work together, not going to movies and not going to concerts and not going to the beach and going on vacation, but actually doing things like raising children and disciplining children and budgeting and church participation and volunteer work with church and charitable organizations and visiting in-laws and all kinds of things that there is no form to fill out on Match.com or Eharmony or Christian Mingle. So in other words, what I'm saying is a lot of times these dating match sites tend to favor actual dating compatibility and not actual lifelong marriage compatibility. So what you have is when you're being matched on these sites, quite often the questions, you get the feeling like, wow, I'm looking for somebody who really I could have a great date with. I'm looking for someone who could actually be very compatible with me on our dating. But that, again, is not a marriage relationship. The dating part of the courtship is great, and you have to have some level of compatibility to actually get past the dating stage. But what if you have a situation where these sites have helped you find a perfect dating partner, and you're going here and you're going there and you're having a great time and you're having great fun, but what does that tell you about the person and their philosophy of family? What does that tell you about the person's philosophy of child raising and how they get along when they conflict in a actual committed dating marriage relationship? It doesn't. In other words, the questions are not geared toward a Christian vision specifically of a marriage relationship. They're geared toward a Christian version of dating. And that leaves a whole lot of area uncovered. Now, some people say, well, that's the whole purpose of dating. This thing just gets you into contact with potential marriage partners, and then once you're compatible in the dating process, then you can talk about these other things and find out if they, in fact, the two people are compatible for a marriage relationships. And yeah, there's something to that. I mean, once you get the entree into that relationship, then you can work those out in more detail. So there is something to that, and that's a good point. But my point is, if you're really looking for a lifelong partner in marriage, if you're a man looking for a woman looking for a man, there are very important questions that could be asked right up front on the form that would tell the person how you view marriage and what you view the philosophy of children and what you think about the Bible, and how do you understand and interpret the passages that talk about male-female relationships in marriage. For example, there's a whole issue of the family vision of the leadership of the man. The Bible outlines that the man is to take the lead in the family and the marriage relationship, and that the wife is to encourage him actually to take the lead because of the vision in the Bible toward male leadership in the family. Now, there are people who violently oppose male leadership in the home and marriage. They say this is old-fashioned, this is not in line with our modern sensibilities, and they're strongly against that. Well, if you're a Christian and you run into another Christian who strongly opposes the biblical understanding of marriage, where the male is encouraged to take the lead and the wife is encouraged to encourage him to take the lead, then you are running into a roadblock, and that really needs to be part of the whole matchmaking process. And that really needs to be a part of the survey, where the people who are looking for a match really need to know, does this person really respect the biblical vision of marriage, or are they just a Christian that treats the scriptural interpretations very loosely and casually and discards whatever they don't like and accepts whatever they like? and so on and so forth. So that's a very important thing. What about children? Now, there are questions about children, thankfully, on some of these dating sites, the Christian dating sites. But what you get, for the most part, what I've experienced is that you get sort of, in a sense, some more than others, a sort of a shopping list, a grocery list of qualities that you're looking for in a person. And men tend to have a shorter list, and it tends to be that women have a longer list. Maybe it's because the women have generally thought more about relationships because they're more relationship oriented. They're doing more reflecting about what they want in a man and what qualities they want in a man, and in some of the actual websites they say these are must-have qualities in a man, and then there are some that are flexible. Okay, I'll accept these qualities, and then the other category: can't have, won't have, don't want. So you've got some categories here, and they ask you to list the qualities that you must have in a relationship, you might have in a relationship, and then the ones you can't have in a relationship. And so it's like you are dictating what, in fact, what kind of a person that you are going to marry based on what you perceive of what you want in this relationship. And again, that is not a strictly biblical way of looking at marriage. We don't go into a marriage relationship with a long list of things that we want from this other person. And if this other person doesn't have those qualities, well, then they're just not acceptable to us. Perhaps, maybe God wants us to enter into a marriage with a person that has a characteristic that we wouldn't have chosen for our own self. We wouldn't have chosen. But perhaps maybe God wants to use that person to either change us or to use us to change that person. And so by going into a relationship with a long list of characteristics that they just have to have, we may find that it's more about what we want rather than what God wants. After all, marriage is somewhat of a mysterious thing. We can't go into marriage with too strong of a will and determination. This is what I'm going to have. This, like a grocery list, we go to the store and, okay, I'm going to get this, I'm going to get that off the shelf and this off the shelf, and so on and so forth. Because what that's doing is setting us up to be overly critical and overly judgmental of people based on our own limited perception of what we think we want. But again, is this about doing the will of God, or is it about having our own will fulfilled? Another part of marriage is that we want God's will be done, not our own will be done. So when you are filling out a survey, there is a temptation to go, I'm going to list everything that I want, and I'm going to be looking for everything I want. And but again, that is tailoring it too much to our own perception of what we think we need. And God knows us more than we know ourselves. And so my understanding is that we have to be careful with those lists, and we have to be careful with those assessments that we list and put down, because some of those things can frankly be border on ridiculous. It's like we're ordering a marriage partner. We're coming up with this ideal person, and the fact is we don't even know ideally what it is that God would have for us. We're just imagining what the ideal marriage partner would be like. We're not really sure, and we don't really know if that, in fact, is the kind of person that God has for us ideally. That's just our ideal. And we have to be careful that we don't take that too far. and even obsess over that, because I've talked to people and I've heard them comment after filling out these surveys and these compatibility tests, and they walk away and they're saying, well, I have learned that I just cannot deal with a person like this, and I just cannot have a person like that, and the person that I marry has to be this way, and the person I marry has to be that way. And I'm like, whoa, you need to be a little less dogmatic and a little less certain and sure of yourself, because in fact only God knows us, and he knows that other person. And if you go in there with this list of things that this other person has to be because you've been told you can do that, and one of the problems with these compatibility tests and lists is that it almost gives you a feeling that you can order a marriage partner, that you can put in your order, just like if you're ordering a car online on an online website. You just, okay, do you want air conditioning? Click that box. Okay, do you want power windows? Click that box. Do you want white wall tires, or would you rather have the optional winter tires? And click that, and all of these decisions, and you're just clicking these boxes because this is what you want. And then you go and you get your car because it's exactly what you've ordered. And there is a danger on these online sites that you kind of get the impression or get the understanding that you can do that with a marriage partner, and it's false. You cannot do that. That is not the way God brings together two people. If you look and read in the Bible, that is not how God brought together the people in the Bible who were married. There are all kinds of different ways that couples come together and they get married, and there are different paths and journeys they take to arrive at marriage. And but I think it's destructive and harmful for people to get into the shopping list mentality, and that's what some of these websites actually communicate in their matching process. I know that that's what I have gotten the impression of when I was filling out the forms, and then when I actually were reading through the forms that other people had filled out. Now, some people, for example, like on Match.com, there's a lot of room where you can write in a lot of your own information about yourself, and some people write a lot of information about themselves, and then other people write very little about themselves. One of the questions that I noticed on one of the sites, I can't remember which one, there was a question that said, ask, do you own your own car? And you've got to check yes or no. And I thought, wow, that's very interesting. I wonder what that's trying to get at. And I guess there would be some women that would say, okay, if you don't own your own car, you must not be a very good person to date. You might be a loser. I don't want to deal with you. And so, but the problem with that is that stereotype would be wrong, because, for example, if you live in Manhattan, in New York City, you may strategically not own a car simply because parking is so outrageous, the insurance rates are so outrageous, and the best way to get around Manhattan is actually either by taxi, by bus, by walking, or by bicycle. And so if you marked, well, no, I don't have a car, well, then a woman across the way might see that and go, oh, what a loser. Well, no, not a loser. You might be totally opposite of a loser, but because you don't have that box checked, the website communicated something about you that might not be accurate. That struck me as kind of a strange question, but it was on one of the sites. I can't remember which site it was, and that it's used, I would imagine, to evaluate a person. whether they own their own car or not. Well, that could tell you something about a person, but maybe not really enough to really get an accurate understanding. So those kind of questions, it struck me that this whole process, I think the whole idea of finding someone compatible and that using computers and matching software and algorithms and all kinds of things like that, that's very interesting and intriguing. And I know Neil Clark Warren has a whole philosophy about this, key areas of compatibility and whatnot. But the problem is, I'm not sure from a Christian perspective that enough of the biblical vision of marriage has been factored into that algorithm. I don't think enough of the actual biblical vision of a marriage has been weighed properly. And I don't think that the way the whole thing has come about, formatted, really does justice to an authentic Christian looking for someone to marry. And so I would warn people, use these sites, but use them with care. They can actually, by using them, you can actually get a false understanding of seeking someone to marry by simply filling out the forms and thinking, oh, I'm ordering a partner for marriage. All I have to do is check these boxes and it'll spit out somebody. No, it's more than that, and actually the whole process might be distorting that whole journey. So beware of that. Well, that's all I've said about that. And but again, I want to encourage you, God is in charge. He knows what you need, and He is sovereign, and He will provide for you. And those are the promises we have in the Bible. So yes, indeed, use these dating sites, Eharmony, Christian Mingle, but be careful now, especially now because the government is imposing standards that are not Christian on these sites. Be careful now, especially, and be careful anyway because of what I just said. Well, God bless you. We'll see you back here next week on another edition of Christian Answers.